Welcome, dear listeners, to my Georgia estate. Serve yourself up a plate as I tell you about the end of the world. Who am I? I'm Elysia from the Wool Shift Us podcast, here to talk all things Grey Goo, episode 8 of season 3 of Silo on Apple TV.
And I'm Luke, just back from researching whether S3-e8 has a marriage counselling service, asking for some friends named Sims.
So, welcome back, Silozens and other friends. This is our weekly Silo season coverage with, again, episode 8 of season 3, Grey Goo, where, things are really starting to melt down, so to speak. Before we begin, Luke, what is the full version of our spoiler policy for this podcast?
So, the discussion will be spoiler-free beyond what's already aired, so full spoilers through season 3, episode 8. Alicia's read the books, but I'm keeping it show only. Elysia can bring up anything from the books that's already happened on screen, but to protect my and your show innocence, there'll be no future book spoilers, except we are allowed to discuss the new in-show universe short story, The Mystery of the Pez by Robert Sims. See our separate bonus episode breakdown for that surprise Apple Books short story from a couple of weeks ago.
And of course, this always leaves lots of room for speculation for me as the book reader too, so I promise I will only speculate when genuine or otherwise pass. But if you do want the full book spoiler discussion with deep dives into all the intricacies of the changes and how we expect that to change the story to come, there is a separate book club podcast that I do with fellow reader Abby. Stick around till the end of this episode to learn more about that. But first, let's break down season 3, episode 8, Grey Goo. It's continuing the trend. This one was 56 minutes long. So each episode since episode 3, I think, has been 1 minute longer than the last. So we might just hit an hour. We'll see. This one was released Friday, August 21st, 2026 on Apple TV. It was directed by Amber Templemore, and she's been one of the most constant directors on this show. In season 1, she directed as part of the directing duo Bert and Bertie, and they directed season 1, episodes 6 and 7. But she also continued on solo directing season 2, episodes 5 and 8, 9, and 10. And this season, she's directing, the last 3 episodes of the season. So this and the next 2 as well. And but the writer of this episode is Jenny de Armet Straan, who also was credited for season 2, episode 5, which Templemore also directed. So I'm wondering, that was another solo heavy episode, Jimmy heavy episode. So I'm wondering if she's one of the solo specialists in the writing room. This show is, of course, based on the Silo series of books by Hugh Howey, who made a cameo in this episode. We'll shout it out when it happened. And those books are, again, Wool, Shift, and Dust. But this episode is about secret machines that are shared in both past and present. Luke, what did you think about Grey Goo overall?
Well, R.I.P. to my aliens theory. That one seems to have bitten the dust. We got this was a very exposition heavy episode. I think some of that exposition worked better than other bits of exposition. I really like Patrick Kennedy and Solo's odd couple energy in this episode. I think the Sims, the breakdown of the Sims marriage gets more interesting by the episode. And I think it's seriously debatable whether their marriage has irreparably broken down at this point. Also, loving the Shroxy. The just Knox and Shirley are rapidly becoming my MVP couple for the entire series. They may be nudging Holston and Allison out of first place there.
Okay. That's high praise.
It is indeed.
This was a very romantic episode on several fronts. I'm so glad Daniel and Helen finally kissed. We got some making up, it seems, between the Billingses. Obviously, the Sherlocks. I insist upon calling them
Okay.
Sherlock. Sorry, we'll just do our own thing with that couple's name. But yeah, obviously they're going strong, and even the S3-e8 is going strong as well. Not in a romantic way, but not everything needs to be romantic.
No.
Yeah, so it was great for pairings for that. I agree, it was exposition heavy, so it didn't hit the heady highs for me of episode 7, but I'm so happy this particular exposition. Can I just say na 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 nanos? I'm so relieved.
I listeners, I got that earlier on as a WhatsApp message.
Yeah, I just this has like been a major thing, and apparently this, I mean, obviously we're far from all of the reveals being over, and I want to emphasize that I will not be going beyond what has been revealed in the show. So I won't say anything, that hasn't been said on screen yet, but just the fact that nanos play a big role in this story is something specifically that I've been trying to protect Luke from. Especially because apparently there was, I mean, obviously book readers know this, but apparently there was this promotional video that was online, but then immediately taken offline before the season began. That was rather spoilery, and it seems to have included a quote from this episode where Per Stenson says that he made his fortune on nanos. So, because of that promo video that I don't think many people got to see, a lot of people thought like, "Oh, it's fine to talk about that." I'm like, "No, nobody talked to Luke about nanos."
Yeah, you just let me go away with aliens,
No, but I was protecting you from the spoiler. Just yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we'll go through obviously some of the roles they might have been playing in the story so far. But yeah, I would highlight them. But it was like me with the heat tape in the first season, where you're like, I don't know, she keeps talking about this heat tape. It's like, why does she keep talking about, why is she so concerned about how the car was being self-driven? Anyway. Yeah, I just thought in the end, though, I loved that this ended with "I want to be Grey Goo with you," which is like, as soon as he says that, I think of the song. It gives new meaning to the lyrics. I'll stop the world and melt with you.
Yep.
So anyway, any other opening thoughts before we get into?
No, let's go plot by plot.
All right.
Your regularly scheduled breakdown will begin in 3, 2, 1.
So, as Luke said, as usual, plot by plot, one location/timeline at a time, starting with the Beforetimes, then we'll talk Silo 17, and then we'll wrap up with Silo 18. So, in the Beforetimes, construction in progress. In 2024 Georgia, the Beforetimes League arrives at the silo project construction site where the first silo is being dug with a prototype of the drill designed by Congressman Daniel Keene, Ashley Zuckerman, in his Army Corps of Engineers days. The team is taken to a country home with a greenhouse dining room where they are debriefed over a meal. The plan is to dig 50 of these silos to hold quote unquote seeds of humanity to survive an apocalypse this group believes is coming. The cause of this impending apocalypse? Nanotechnology, the source of the majority of Per Stenson's, Colin Hanks' wealth. A technology that's becoming increasingly affordable that could turn people into gray goo. Matters have escalated now that Iran has developed their own nano program, and the alleged dirty bomb that went off in DC was actually a device to knock out all AI and nanotech in the area, and it was the beginning of a secret war between Iran and the US. Navy pilot Charlotte Keene, Jessica Brown Finlay, wants to know what this has to do with what happened to her squadron. Senator Rosalind Thurman, Laura Innes, tells her that her mission helped to take out a secret nano facility in the mountains of Iran. Per clarifies that her squadron didn't reach their destination because they were intercepted by a cloud of Iranian nanos that took over their planes. Anna Thurman, Morven Christie, explains that there was a backup. The Army Corps of Engineers had spent the last 2 years digging a 75-mile tunnel, presumably using Daniel's drill, across the border to right below the facility. When Charlotte's squad was attacked, they blew up the facility from that tunnel with a low-yield nuclear weapon. But journalist Helen Drew, Jessica Henwick, calls this alleged backup bullshit and accuses the others of intentionally using Charlotte's squadron to provoke a response so that they could see Iran's nanos in action. Charlotte, hearing this, grows upset and runs out. So, what did you think when you heard about these nanos?
Okay. I've got to question the logic of this slightly. And I'm not questioning it from the point of view of the feasibility of the technology, because it's fiction at the end of the, Silo is fiction at the end of the day. Although the possibility of developing a nano weapon is something that's probably measured in decades. It's not my area of specialty, but from what I understand, it's a long way off.
I'll say in the books, this is set a couple more decades in the future.
Okay, that makes sense. But the whole point of having a nano weapon is that you could release it unobtrusively. You could release it without anybody knowing that you'd done it. So, what would be the point of developing a nano weapon and then putting it inside a what the fuck cloud? Or detonating it in a bomb?
But it's not inside the cloud. It is like, that was a clump of nanos is the cloud. That's why it was floaty, not Cody. There was a little nanos flying.
Okay, but again, if you're going to develop a nano weapon, the whole point is it's very, 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 very microscopically small.
Yeah, so that is a thing with the, I mean, I'll say it is a thing, again, and Pear does at one point refer to them as invisible. And, I was saying, like, I think the nanos could have flown into their car while they were already driving it, and they wouldn't have seen it. And that's emphasized that they're invisible. But it does come down to, you need a way to visualize this stuff on TV. I will say that in the book, there is a throwaway line that says something about how Iran's nano program is cruder, as in this would explain why their nanos are not as microscopic. They're more visible.
Yeah. Okay, but I see. I'm not sure whether Per Stenson is telling us the entire truth.
Okay.
Here.
I'm sure. I mean, certainly not, I would say.
No, certainly not.
I think that's safe to say. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like a bit questioning about why would you have an invisible weapon that was actually very, 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 very visible?
Because TV.
Because TV.
People need to see it.
Okay. I was just desperately clinging on to my aliens hypothesis. Also, that house, stunning. I want that house.
Great location scouting. I'll say there was something, and I went down a little, some of my little research side paths lead nowhere, but I was like, there's a lot of red moss in that roof. Is that a thing? And all I found is that it does look pretty. It goes well with the coloring of it, but that is bad for your infrastructure of the house. And I would think that Pear could afford to get it cleaned off. Or no, I suppose it's actually, what's her faces? Yeah.
Senator Thurmond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although I do have to knock points off this scene because it did indulge in one of my least favourite TV tropes.
What?
Which I understand why they do it, because it's more convenient, but it always annoys me when you have several characters sitting around a table, allegedly eating a meal, and no one eats.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like no one is talking with, everybody is ready to talk. No one has got their mouth full at any point during this alleged meal.
I've heard from actors who do decide to eat during the meal that they often regret it by the end, because after all the takes. And then it's also a thing for continuity, continuity people, that they have to you had 3 bites out of this,
No, I completely understand from a continuity point of view and an actor's point of view, but like
Yeah, I
somebody,
know.
I think it might have been my friend Steve once pointed this out to me, and ever since then I've never been able to not see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a big thing, but it's just one of my absolute pet peeves with television. Is if you are doing a scene that has a meal in it, somebody should be eating.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So since anyone who didn't listen to our mailbag, our last mailbag, the stolen mailbag full of light bulbs, do you want to tell people why I said that it's 2024? Why we're suddenly using that year?
No, you better tell them because I can't quite remember to be
Oh, okay.
honest.
No, yeah, it was basically that someone spotted this. We talked about this more in the mailbag episode if you're curious, but someone spotted this on the screen of in Hacker Steve's place, basically. So we know that it's late 2024, presumably. Yeah.
Okay.
What did you think about Daniel seeing his drill in action?
That was really cool. And like you've put in the show notes, it really does give you a sense of the scale of everything when you've got people walking around it.
Hmm.
Um yeah, and it's incredibly big. And also like I thought there was a moment there where Daniel's staring up at this thing. And it's just a hint of I made that.
Hmm.
That's mine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll say there is a book difference I've been reluctant to say, but I think it's safe now. It's minor difference. Rather than being an engineer, Daniel in the books is an architect. So he gets pulled into the project to design what he thinks is one silo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was nice to see him here. You know, seeing him in engineering mode when he tells Pear that it's cheaper to make 50 drills and just leave them at the bottom of the silos rather than paying to pull them back out and reuse them. And he drops an engineer joke that I have heard before. The glass is twice as big as it needs to be.
Yeah, is the glass half full or half empty? No, the glass is twice as big as it needs to be.
It's not efficient. Yeah. Yeah. And I loved the location too. As you said, I loved that greenhouse dining area. I was thinking this is very Northern European. And then I was thinking, oh, if it's owned by someone named Per Stenson, who that's a very Northern European name.
Yes.
But no, I think it's Thurman's house, I guess. I don't know.
I think it's Thurman's house, yeah.
Yeah. Although Rosalind Thurman and that, I think she also has a Northern European background.
Yeah.
But it was a lovely setting. They've been finding, like, because also, you know, the silo needs to be so samey. It's just by definition like that. It's nice that with the DC storyline, they've been able to find some really distinctive, picturesque locations for those scenes.
Yeah, do you think the set designers were like, oh, thank God, we can do something else?
Yeah, well, then they have to hire new location scouts rather than just filming everything on a set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, okay, let's talk about this seeds aspect that we heard about. What do you want to explain? What did we learn about the seeds so far? And I know you also wanted to talk about that Svalbard seed vault mention.
Yeah. So Piers Stenson believes that the world is going to come to an end. And actually, he doesn't say specifically it's going to be nanotech. He says it could be a number of things, including things we hadn't thought of yet. But he sort of singles out nanotech as being the most likely. So the purpose of the Silo project is to preserve not just humanity, but like we've seen in the vaults, the best of humanity's art, architecture, culture, science. And Helen brings up the Svalbard Seed Vault. Now, I just wanted to talk about this because this is not something that is invented for the show. The Svalbard Seed Vault actually exists, and it's really cool. So, Svalbard is a little island in the Norwegian Arctic. And on Svalbard, because of the geography and because of the climate, because it's extremely cold, basically there is a project to store as many of the world's seeds and to create a sort of biological preserve that will stop various types of plants going extinct. And like I say, the reason why Svalbard is uniquely well suited for this is because it's extremely cold. You can basically store them all in caves without having to use a lot of electricity and a lot of space for artificial refrigeration. So I think Alicia's going to put the website for the Svalbard Seed Vault
in the show notes.
in the show notes. But yeah, that is a real thing. It exists, and it's a very cool project.
Yeah, and so basically, when Anna says, and I just noted that Anna shot a look at Pear before she said seeds with a little smile.
Yeah.
Very shady, Anna, but she does. They do clarify a bit, and so. Helen's like, what? Like, this is like seeds, like this Svalbard seed vault, like 50 silos. That's a hell of a lot of seeds.
Yeah.
and Pear's like, well, we're also going to store the best of the world's art, literature, and science. And of course, we've seen that in the various vaults. And, or at least one of the vaults. We actually haven't seen inside Silo 18's vault, have we?
No, we haven't.
Oh, no, we did. When Lucas was getting trained.
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course we did. Yeah.
Yeah. A little less chaotic than Jimmy's, but he's had a few decades to mess that about. Anyway, so yeah, we've seen they do have that, but obviously, the biggest thing is that they are for a different kind of seed. Senator Thurman says people to repopulate the earth in case of an apocalypse. By the way, people were talking about like how do people not know about this project going on and just finding it unbelievable that it would be kept secret. And this is why people need to keep watching. I was biting my tongue because I'd already watched this episode and I knew the answer to the question. So it is a no-fly zone for now. It will be blurred out in satellite photos, but they do not only expect news of it to leak, they plan in a couple years at least to leak the news itself, but to put the propaganda spin on it that it is Stenson's folly, that it is the mad creation of a lunatic with too much money. So yeah, they say they want to slow it getting out because they're afraid it will trigger an enemy to enact an attack sooner. But and then they just want to paint it as some trillionaire, as it turns out, doing trillionaire stuff.
I mean, yeah, it kind of makes sense, I suppose. And yeah, it would be very easy to dismiss it as the folly of somebody with too much money. That being said, though, I think you could also more just as plausibly explain it as what people have been speculating it actually is some kind of like social experiment. The one that I was thinking of is, to simulate the experience of going to Mars.
Oh, that they could explain it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And of course, the senator says, our most fervent prayer is that this really is Stenson's folly, but better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, which was the motto of my Overpackers Anonymous club that my bestie and I had growing up.
Cool.
What did you think about the explanation that Pear says they intentionally scared Daniel and Helen by carnapping them to put them in a survival frame of mind before telling them about all this? I think that says a lot about Pear. And I know we're going to get into that a bit more in the next section, but...
Yeah, and I mean, it was also to get them where they wanted to go as well. So I think this is probably a bit of after the fact rationalization by Pear as well, but...
I think that it fits with what we learn about him in the later conversation too, that he is, he's someone who... Pear just has a very like everyone's out to get you way of thinking. I think we'll dig into that a bit more in the next section. All right, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to break down all the nano lore into gray goo. Do you want to talk about? We find out, we'll come back to the nanos in a sec, but we find out that the backup for Charlotte's mission was this backup tunnel with a low yield nuke. That's like a mini nuke? What's that?
Yeah, it's exactly what it says it is. It's a smaller nuclear weapon. So you'd be looking in the kilotons rather than megatons range of destruction, but also you would potentially be looking at a weapon that yields a lot of explosive force without necessarily yielding a lot of radiation as well. And there are sort of ways of constructing a nuclear weapon that minimizes the fallout. Although if it was detonated underground, there wouldn't be much fallout anyway. So yeah, that doesn't quite track.
What do you
To be
mean?
honest, well, fallout is the dust that is thrown up into the atmosphere by a nuclear detonation. So
Uh-huh.
if it's detonated underground, or if it's detonated in a confined space, there wouldn't be that fallout anyway.
Right. So that's good, right?
Yes, that's good. But then why bother using a low yield nuclear weapon?
Oh, you're saying you could have used a bigger one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why be more destructive than you need to be, I guess.
Well, yeah, but if you're talking about destroying a nano weapon, more is probably more rather than less is more.
I don't know. I mean, they don't want to blow up all the mountains.
Why not?
Because we don't want to destroy the earth. The goal is not destroying the earth. The goal, no destroying, no to destruction. Okay, but about the nanos, what is your have you read much fiction about nanos or much science about it?
I mean, obviously, you can't watch a lot of science fiction without being exposed to nanotechnology. But no, it's not something I've read. It's not something I've read up on. And I want to be clear, I don't know what the feasibility of a nano weapon is, to be honest. Although, like I say, I would think it would be decades away rather than years. And also, I would certainly argue with Pear's contention that it would be cheaper than a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, I would love to hear people weigh in. I do think it's much further along than you would like to think. I'll say my starter pack for learning about nanos was definitely through fiction. First was Michael Crichton's book Prey, which came out in 2002. So I'm pretty sure I read it quickly after it came out. And that is where, nanobots are the enemy. And sorry, spoiler for this, almost 25-year-old book. But they people are using them to enhance themselves, but they're also eating away at the people that they're anyway. So that was the first time I learned about nanos. And then when I found out that was one of the first big twists in the Silo series, which came out a decade after that, then that was really blew my mind at the time, especially. I do think it's become more popular, as you say, in fiction, but I would say especially built on the back of Prey and Silo. I think that they are really pioneers in the nano sci-fi space.
Okay.
But you didn't guess them as one of the options, so I guess
No, I didn't.
I guess it's still not, it's not that obvious or a trope or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder what kind of nanos Charlotte encountered in the What the Fuck Cloud. They took control of their plane. Could they do anything else? Could they, what's your understanding of what Per Stenson was talking about with the gray goo?
I'm assuming that it would be that they would be programmed to infect human beings and sort of act almost like a quasi biological agent. This is the other problem with nanobots as a weapon. They would face rather the same issue that you have with biological warfare, which is once you release it out into the wild, there's no way to direct it, there's no way to contain it.
Well, I would say two things. I wonder, with the progression of technology since the books were, I wonder what role AI will play in controlling the nanos themselves. But they are definitely programmed for certain things. And this is where I'm treading carefully.
Okay.
But I'll say they are programmed with some certain levels of specificity. But
Okay.
yeah.
So what this reminded me of was the Stuxnet incident.
What is that?
You familiar with that? Okay,
No.
so back during the noughties and 2010s, the CIA and Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, were running a series of operations against the Iranian nuclear program, and this is all well in the public domain. And one of the things they did was introduce a virus into the computer code that controlled the centrifuges in the Iranian nuclear program. In other words, what it did was make them spin incredibly fast. So they basically blew themselves up.
Okay.
And the way this was introduced was by slipping thumb drives to Iranian nuclear scientists with the virus on, as well as other things, and then having them plug the thumb drive into their laptops, and then having them plug their laptops into the centrifuge controls. The problem is that this virus actually got out into the wild onto the internet because they were also plugging in these thumb drives into their laptops when they were going online. Now, fortunately, the virus didn't do anything because it only became dangerous when it interacted with a particular type of centrifuge. But what it did do is get out onto the internet and replicate itself massively, which is why it's been referred to as Stuxnet, because it's just a random line of code that kept popping up everywhere.
So are you saying you think that the nanos in the show could become self-replicating?
I think it could become self-replicating, but that wasn't really the point I was making. The point I was making is once you introduce a weapon system like this, you don't know where it's going to go, and you don't know what it's going. It will very quickly slip from your control because of the way people will interact with it, and people will do stuff with it that you're not expecting. But yeah, if people want to look that up, it's referred to as Operation Olympic Games, and it's discussed in a number of books that look at the Obama presidency. The best one is a book called Confront and Conceal, which I think came out in 2014. The author is David Sanger.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, well, as I said, I won't really comment more on that. I will definitely learn more about the nanos and about a lot of other things as we keep going. There's still a season and a handful of episodes remaining. But yeah, for the gray goo here, I guess I can say the implication is that they get into your cells basically and break them down from the inside. As you say, it's a sort of like quasi biological terror. And he says, we're facing the end of the world and it cannot be stopped. And he names the threats we face as nuclear war, climate collapse, viral pandemic, asteroid strike. I'm like, most of these are all feeling so real. Artificial intelligence, and some we haven't thought of. But the one that is most dangerous is also the reason I'm the richest man in history, nanotechnology. Which is like, of course, all these things he says are dangers are where he is directly busying himself. Like, we know he is outspoken against AI control, but also one of the head AI dudes, obviously very involved in nanos. We just talked about low-grade nuclear weapons. Good chance that he has something to do with that as well. So just sort of like the type of guy who's like, all these things that scare me less if I control them, which I guess is kind of like Charlotte in the last episode, saying she's afraid of flying unless she's flying herself.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says about nanos, they're scary not just because they're invisible, but because he says that they are a lot cheaper to build than a nuclear weapon. I think probably this has to do with, I mean, it has to do with uranium. You just need technology that can create something that small, but the parts themselves, it's you
Yeah,
don't
I
have.
mean, but I mean, I'm sorry that this is a pet peeve of mine, and I won't go on about. I won't labour the point. But actually, building a nuclear weapon is not that complicated.
You
It's
need
a
the uranium alone makes it complicated.
well, it's difficult. It's difficult to obtain, but the actual engineering is not that
Hmm.
complicated. Like if you've got a PhD in physics, you will know how to build a nuclear bomb. Again,
But it's
just
not just assembly. You do have to get the parts first, I'm saying.
yeah. So just to go off on a slight tangent. Have you ever heard of A.Q. Khan?
No.
Okay, A.Q. Khan is the guy who developed Pakistan's nuclear program, and he was a physicist, and he was working in West Germany in the 1970s. And what he did, or what he realized, was that the all the export controls around uranium and all the engineering equipment and specialist material you need to make a nuclear bomb, what they are looking for is bulk purchases of certain equipment. So what you do is you create dozens of dummy companies based all over the world, and they all import one or two items. And nobody notices that because it's so small and done over such a prolonged period of time that it doesn't raise any red flags. And all this stuff has other legitimate uses outside of building a nuclear weapon. But so long as you are patient, this is actually perfectly doable. Um, and like North Korea, North Korea is a very poor country, but it has the capability and determination necessary to build a nuclear bomb.
I'll
The
say
point,
that North Korea is also named in the book alongside Iran in
yeah,
the nano stuff. But anyway, sorry, keep going.
yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is building a nuclear weapon is a matter of time and patience and effort. It's not particularly. It's actually not for what you get at the end. It's not massively expensive, and it's not particularly difficult.
Mm-hmm. But okay, Luke, I have to give you some internet points for you have been saying all along that this is the sort of plan that needs to be planned in advance. And that's why, yeah, Pear is saying something will happen. And Helen's like, yeah, but are there any imminent threats? And Pear's like, well, we want to be ready before the threat becomes imminent.
This will be the last time I do this, I promise. But
Please do.
it reminds me of a quote from Otto von Bismarck about preventive war being the equivalent of a man who is so afraid of murder he commits suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We'll definitely get back to that sentiment in the next section too.
yeah. I'm not saying Per Stenson is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I am just saying that I'm agreeing with Helen that there are better ways to spend billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll talk all about that conversation in the next part. Yeah. So we find out that Iran has started a nano program. As we say, negotiations aren't working out. Threats aren't working either. It's very uncomfortably mirroring the current world.
Yeah, I've got to say, like, if I'm the writer or producer on Silo, I'm thinking this hits a little bit nearer the knuckle than I was intending.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, what they're talking about in the show is potentially even more dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we find out that you were right about this, or I guess we both agreed about this, that the so-called dirty bomb allegedly set up in set off in DC that we heard about at the end of season 2 was not a dirty bomb. Dirty bomb's bullshit. It was a device to knock out AI and Nano. That was, of course, what Helen was investigating when she met Daniel in the first place. So, yeah, I suppose you were not surprised by that?
No, not in the least.
I was. The only part that surprised me is like, so the Dulles corridor, are we saying the DC area is the tech center for Pear at least and not Silicon Valley?
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
What do you think about the fact that they told the public that it was a dirty bomb because they said people could understand that?
I think yes, I think that kind of makes sense. Although you do then run the problem that was identified in earlier on in the season, and actually all the way back in episode 10 of season 2, of people being checked for radiation and nobody ever registering a positive result because they're never going to. So yeah, I again, this might be similar to the gassing of the miners, or Bernard's admission with the tape. You're not really thinking it all the way through. You're solving one problem, but you're creating another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's set up the section where Helen calls Pear out on some more stuff. Rosemary memories. Charlotte's doctor. So we left. Charlotte had just run out of the room because Helen got confrontational over them using Charlotte as bait for the nano cloud, basically. And so Charlotte's doctor, Victor Cernkovich, Matt Craven, follows her to help calm her down, Anna to console her, and Helen to apologize. Victor tells Daniel that now would be a good time to trigger a childhood memory. With no other artifacts at hand, Daniel shares the smell of rosemary with his sister, and it brings back a flood of memories. Charlotte's phase where she insisted they eat rosemary chicken every Sunday, their mother. She hugs her brother with tears in her eyes. The group reconvenes in the greenhouse for more food and apocalypse planning, where Charlotte, Helen, and Daniel are all offered roles on the project. Charlotte accepts, but Helen immediately opts out, looking back and forth between his sister, who is looking at Anna, and the woman he's been going down the rabbit hole with. He chooses Helen. As she's about to leave by helicopter, Daniel joins her, telling her he'd rather turn to Grey Goo with her than stay with the rest of them. And the two kiss as they fly away.
Okay, couple of things. Charlotte and Anna are definitely knocking boots, or definitely sure. Want to knock boots.
Oh no, I'm the question. We'll get to it in the feedback, but the question is, how long have they been knocking boots?
Yeah. Also, is it just me, or did you find it really sinister that when Daniel got into the helicopter, said the Grey Goo bit, and when the helicopter was flying away, the camera cuts to Victor and Henry standing in front of a barn. Like the camera lingers on
in front of the fence, yeah. And Victor stays behind to watch as they fly away. And Henry walks up,
and the camera sort of lingers on Victor's face for a couple of seconds. And you know what that made me think? Because I was thinking that either they were going to have to go along or they were going to get killed. But there's an obvious third option. They're going to get memory drugged, aren't they?
Oh, interesting. You think that's why Victor was looking after them? Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to get memory drugged.
I was wondering what he was thinking as they flew away. I was hoping he thought like, "Oh, you go live your lives, you crazy kids."
But no, they're not going to let them out in the world just wandering about, knowing all about this project. They're going to get memory drugged. They
signed their NDAs.
Yeah, but they go. We got a load of feedback on that, by the way. We got a load of really interesting feedback on that, by the way. But yeah, no, they're not just going to let them wander around in the world knowing what they know. Helen, Daniel, don't drink the water.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we get confirmation of Henry's name on screen, by the way. Laura Innes, Senator Thurman says, Henry is at the farmhouse and he'll take you to a helicopter, get you wherever you want to go. So I'm like, they said Henry's name on screen. That's the Reed Birney character. But yeah, as far as if we jump back to the whole confrontation after Charlotte runs out, I found a lot of really telling things in that scene. Like, first of all, it's one thing for Daniel to give Charlotte a moment with her doctor, who, obviously he's her doctor. He's proven to have the ability to calm her down. But it's very telling that Anna is the one standing between Daniel and Charlotte as well. And he allows it, and he hangs back with Helen, and he and Helen like exchange like almost a look and a shrug together.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad for a brother and sister, but he and Helen obviously are home base, as I said last time.
Yeah.
What did you think about the memory via Rosemary reveal?
Jessica Brown Finley plays that really well, and it's a really sweet and endearing story, and it does speak to Charlotte's need for order and structure.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that this is Sunday, therefore we eat this meal every Sunday, like clockwork.
Yeah, and also a desire to fit in because someone told her that that's normal to eat the same thing every Sunday.
Yeah, but also if you are going to eat the same thing for every Sunday every 2 years, rosemary chicken is not a bad shout.
No, that's a good choice. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say it does give her like a prime military profile. And I do wonder if people in the autism spectrum will see parts of themselves in her in that regard.
Yeah.
But it is true. And this is something that's emphasized at some point in the books as well. I almost was going to read the quote about this, but it's from a part of the book I can't talk about yet. But they do talk about there also how, and it's based on real science, that smell is one of the most powerful memory triggers. That's why I keep talking about Juliet and the soup and what a reminder of Solo and blah, blah, blah. But it makes sense that he would turn to a food item and a strong smell like rosemary for a fast unlock of the memory. When Victor said you grew up on a farm, right? I thought Daniel was going to like have her interact with the horses or something.
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool.
But as far as Helen, like, I don't think Helen needs to apologize to anyone. Do you? Was she out of line?
No, I mean she wasn't out of line, but she could perhaps have waited for a moment when Charlotte wasn't around.
I mean, but the point was also for Charlotte to realize this.
I guess, yeah. No, that's a very good point. Actually, no,
if I were Charlotte, I would be grateful to Helen personally. I think.
Yeah, No, I think that's fair.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, Anna's like, what the fuck was that supposed to achieve? But and like, okay, maybe she could have phrased it better. But like I said, I like blunt people.
Yeah, you know what that reminded me of when Helen was doing the whole thing about could you end homelessness? Could you cure Alzheimer's? Could you cure cancer? There's that Spider-Man meme of, but with technology like that, you could cure cancer. I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs.
So Helen says, I usually try to confine my urge to speak truth to power to the people actually in power, which I think is, by the way, exactly what she did. She was directing that. She was yelling at Pear and the senator on Charlotte's behalf, not at Charlotte. But anyway, but Pear's like, fine. You think you're the first journalist to come at me like this? Bring it. Knock yourself out. And so she starts asking questions, and the people who want answers in the audience rejoice. She says, how much is this going to cost to run per year? And he says, after the apocalypse, the silos are meant to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining. Until then, what do you think about this plan? There's a plan to test 100 people in each of the silos. So that means 5,000 people each will be paid $200K each a year. So that's $1 billion a year in salary alone, let alone supplies and whatever else. And he says he's a trillionaire, so he can afford to pay for this for 1,000 years with his private wealth, not taxpayer dollars. So first of all, we learned private project, not taxpayer, but the senator seems to be involved. Second question for you, Luke. Would you be a silo tester?
Okay, to answer that question, yeah, I think I would be.
Yeah,
for $200,000, at least for a year or so. Because actually, not just for the money, but I would find it quite interesting, as a sort of social experiment, and also sort of an opportunity for self-knowledge. could I hack it? Could I do it? Could I live in a silo for a year? Like, I'm not saying I would want to make a career of it, but yeah, give me the $200,000 as a one-off thing for a year. Yeah, I'd do that.
I wonder if it also gets you a place on the list to, for bunker survival in case of the apocalypse.
Well, that's interesting because I was thinking about this. We've been assuming that once the silos have been built, they were going to move like loads of people into them. But what if they don't? What if the disaster, whatever the nature of that disaster is, happens, and the only people in there are the 100 or so employees? And what if over time they're the ones that populate the silo?
What if?
Oh,
No, no comment.
okay.
What do you think about the aspect that, and I'll say this, the book version, the story that's told to the public, it does seem to be government dollars paying for it. There is a tech guy, but he's not necessarily positioned as the richest man in the world in the book version. So the story told to the public is it's a government project to build a nuclear waste storage complex. And Thurman's name is the one on the project because it's from a political angle.
Okay.
So what do you think about this version versus that version?
Yeah, I can't imagine that version being particularly popular with the voters of Georgia.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot of discussion about this in the book discussions about how feasible people thought whether Americans would agree to that. And maybe it's even less so now than at the time that the books were written.
Well, I mean, as to my understanding is that most of the US's nuclear waste is dumped out in Utah, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, it does have to be dumped somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get to that conversation that you brought up. So Pear admits he could spend this money on curing homelessness. Says he is close to curing Alzheimer's. So it seems that part of the clinic, the clinic that Charlotte went to, is said to be founded to cure Alzheimer's because of his mother. So that part seems to be legit. And he says ending cancer or global poverty would be noble goals, but they're not my goal, which is basically what you were saying. So here's my question for you. What do you think would be the best use of $1 trillion to save the planet? If you had $1 trillion to spend on saving the planet, how should it be spent?
Oh God, we could be here for hours. I think that there are a couple of things. So the first thing is global infrastructure and green energy. Not so much green energy technology because actually that's pretty developed, but making sure that you could store the power generated by things like waves, wind, solar, and to build a new power grid with that in mind. So basically to hook it up to make sure it's all hooked up actually you'd have to do it continent by continent. So there'd be a North American grid, a European grid, a North African grid, a Sub-Saharan African grid. You could do things like, particularly in Sub-Saharan Africa, there's a huge deficit in physical infrastructure and things like roads, hospitals, um, access to clean water, access to electricity. You basically, there isn't one project you would spend it on. You'd spend it on you'd be spending lots of sort of $10 billion projects, not $1 trillion project. There's reforesting the Amazon. There is protecting biodiversity. I could literally be here for hours.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that from my perspective, the biggest thing is I don't think that spending money. This conversation dovetails oddly with a conversation Jean and I were having in the Spider-Man Brand New Day podcast on the Lorehounds feed. So where we just talked about the Thanos snap, but I think that at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about money. It's about where the resources and money we have are focused. And if they are all focused on destroying each other, then that leaves that, first of all, it definitely blocks the ability to distribute resources, literally, leads to blockades in various places. But also, like we have enough food in this world if we could distribute it more equitably. And I think education is the answer. Just creating societies that normalize empathy and cooperation more. That is what we need more than spending any amount of money on anything. But I think it's really telling that Pear says, that he just doesn't think it's possible to curtail greed and warfare. And his first thought is like, how would I stop Iran from doing this? I would buy Iran. And like, that's not the answer. He can't imagine thinking as an actual ally to Iran and building a relationship through common goals so that you just don't want to destroy each other, so that you're working toward the same goals instead of, let's have the goals of blowing each other up. So I think that tells a lot about Pear. But what do we think the senator thinks or believes in that regard?
Sorry, what do you mean?
That do we think that the senator agrees with Pear that the answer to the world's problems is to build a bigger gun?
Yeah,
It seems so. She said she agreed with him, right?
yeah, and I think she does.
And Pear brings up the troll, quote unquote, who lives in his mother's basement, who wants to hack into Missile Command and launch World War III, or release a virus that he made with CRISPR, or God forbid, make a nano weapon for $300. And yeah, my philosophy is when you look for enemies around every corner, you will not only find them, you will create them. And I think that's what we see happening here. I don't know. I mean, I guess they're well-meaning. Do you think that they're well-meaning?
Oh, I'm not sure that Pear is well-meaning because, like I say, I'm not. I think there is. I think there is more stuff going on with Pear than what he's told us.
He's you ranked him last time as your least trusted of
Yeah,
the
and I still would.
Okay, yeah. Um, I mean, it does like I hear him in real life for people who are well-meaning, like fear of 3D printed guns, that sort of thing. But I think at the end of the day, you can't prevent people from making weapons. I just think about there's this one of the early, back when I used to watch The Simpsons, one of the first, the second actually,
Yeah.
Treehouse of a Horror episode from season 3, episode 7. There was this monkey's paw episode, and part of it goes into a world where Lisa has wished on a monkey's paw for there to be no more weapons or militaries in the world. And so the entire world is at peace, but that makes them vulnerable to alien invasion. And so the aliens invade, but then Ned Flanders makes another wish on the monkey's paw to get rid of them. And they just basically pick up a piece of wood and realize that's a weapon and chase the aliens off. So it's like, no matter what, humans are going to make weapons, not just humans, that, apes are doing it too. So I think you can't prevent people from making weapons. The goal needs to be making them not want to or not feel the need to make weapons. But anyway, I'll get off my TED Talk soapbox.
That's all right. I've been on my TED Talk soapbox quite a bit this episode, so you're entitled.
It's one of those shows.
You're entitled, yeah.
But okay, so we find out that they want the three of them to join the project. They want Helen to be the journalist who sells Stenson's Folly to the public. So kind of they want her to lie, which isn't really going to sit well with Helen.
No, not really.
And they want Charlotte to on as because she's a drone pilot, basically. And they say Victor's already on, and as her doctor, they can continue their treatment together. And Anna says to Daniel, "It's obvious you don't enjoy being a congressman. And this is going to be, you wanted to pass infrastructure reform. This is the ultimate infrastructure project," which is, I think, gave him the ick because
Yes.
This is not like helping the common man, which is presumably what he wanted with infrastructure reform.
Yeah.
I noticed. Oh, and they all get to keep their million if they leave, so that's nice.
Yeah, so they've got 2 million between them.
Yeah. So, I mean, Daniel, I noticed especially on the rewatch his responses to because at first, did you think that Daniel was going to accept the first?
I thought there was a moment when he was thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still thought that on the rewatch.
Yeah, but I noticed on my rewatch that he the way he looked at each of the other two when they responded, when Helen says at one point, when because they tell Helen that yeah, you live near the site, you can live in the city in Atlanta, and that Times job was real. You can work in their Atlanta office. And Helen says, Jesus, that's a good offer. And Daniel gives her a look of surprise. So that tells me he's knew she was going to say no. And he's like, really? You think that
Yes.
sounds yeah. And then with his sister, he gives her almost like disappointed look. His eyes do this sad twitchy thing when Charlotte accepts.
Yeah.
Although, like, how do we feel about the fact that Daniel's not sticking around to help her recover more of her memories?
Yeah, because that does rather leave Charlotte up the creek without a paddle, really, doesn't it? Because Victor's quote unquote treatment can really only work if Daniel is in on it, because she doesn't have any other. I mean, she's probably got friends, but in terms of rebuilding the memory, rebuilding a large part of her life, it's not like she's got um, other members of the family that she can lean on. It's been made clear that her and Daniel are pretty much alone in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he can still visit her. So I hope it's not about the memory wipe thing and that he can help her. Um, I did enjoy Helen's response. She says, I think I'd rather be blown to bits by a nuke or turn into gray goo by nano than stick around for your post apocalyptic underground mole people party. Good luck, Morlocks.
Yeah, I
And so
love the good look Morlocks, because
well, we had just said, yeah, in the feedback episode that it was going to be an H.G. Wells crossover, so confirmed.
yeah.
And then Daniel, oh, he's such a nerd, which is I think is adorable. He says he tells her when he joins her, Stenson's cray cray. And she's like, nobody says that anymore, which is true. People do say date. I'm never gonna get over that.
Yeah.
But cray cray is a little old fashioned. And he says they do if they're really cray fucking cray, which is a fair comeback, Daniel. Fair. And then he says, I want to turn to gray goo with you. But I want to point out she initiates the kiss.
Yeah, she does.
Because some people were icked out by the romance because she kept saying it was not a date, but she was obviously into it.
Yeah, oh, she was totally into it.
Yeah. So, okay, if you were given this offer, would you stay or would you go?
Would I stay or would I go?
Would you stay or would you go?
Duty. It's probably, I would be tempted to stay, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I want to know. Yeah, I want to know about the world-ending projects. But it is like, even though I just went through all these reasons why I fundamentally disagree with Per Stenson's view of the world, but just knowing that that's going on, and he doesn't seem like he's not, some guy that you have to worry about flying off the handle at you all the time. He seems very even-tempered. I can imagine there being real-world counterparts that I would not want to be in contact with.
You don't want to be involved in a silo project with Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk.
Probably or sooner Mark Zuckerberg, because he seems more even-tempered. But yeah, no, I do think that yeah, rather than both of them, I think that Per Stenson seems like a more pleasant person to be around. And maybe there's a way to like reason, and the way he's putting it here, obviously we know that the silo project's going to be enacted and something happens to the rest of the world and they have this project. So who's to say at this point that he's wrong given what we know about
Yeah.
350 years in the future.
But you know what would really appeal to me is getting to help decide what goes in the vault.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me curate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody was a Peter Gabriel fan.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot. Peter Gabriel's entire back catalogue survives the apocalypse.
At least in Silo 17. I imagine, I mean, because that is another thing that it seems like the vaults in the show version, it was more about preserving information in the book version. In the show version, they really do have like art and things like that in there. And so it seems like, yeah, they want to preserve the vaults, and that would be a good explanation for why there's an independent power source to IT in case everything else goes down, so that at least the vault survives.
Yeah.
Do we think there's going to be a time jump in the Beforetimes part of the story now?
Maybe, but I mean, the catastrophe could come along at any time.
Well, they need to at least build 50 silos first, right?
They do, but
that's going to take a few years.
Well, they seem to be making pretty good progress. So
they only have like the hole for one of them so far. Almost.
Yeah, but he's going to get 50 diggers now. Yeah, so,
but then they have to build the whole thing. That's going to take years.
But yeah, I'm very concerned that Helen and Daniel are going to get memory drugged after this episode.
I just don't see. I mean, they signed the NDA, and I just don't see. Like, what, they're going to put them in the Stenson clinic or something? I don't know.
No, they're just going to slip it in the water like they're doing with the actual silo.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Slip it in their food.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. I want the plot to keep going and not stall on that. Any other thoughts about the Beforetimes story?
Yeah, I know we've been told it's nanos. Like,
what is nanos though?
The what the fuck cloud is nanos.
Oh, okay.
And like I don't want to feel like I'm holding on to like my aliens theory. Well, okay, I am holding on to my aliens theory with my fingernails. It just I get what you're saying about it needs to look good on television, but I don't understand why you would have your itty bitty little invisible weapon system in a big fucking cloud. That makes no sense.
Well, yeah, they obviously, Iran does not have the itty bitty little version.
But if they don't have the itty bitty little version, then they don't have a nano weapon because
no, it should be called like a micro.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. There. Yeah.
Anyway, I just the what the fuck cloud doesn't quite add up for me. Is all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's take a break here. When we come back, we're going to check in on someone I know everyone's been looking forward to, Silo 17 and Solo. Be right back. All right, so in Silo 17, the kids are all right, but the episode opens with Patrick Kennedy, Rick Gomez, and Lucas Kyle Avinash in the mud after being shot at, as we heard in episode 7. Both have been playing dead until the attackers, which we can assume were drones unless incorrected, they just said, we're getting shot from the sky. Yeah, I think there's no reason for us not to think it's drones. But anyway, they've flown away. But it turns out both Patrick and Lucas have survived. Only Lucas has actually been shot. The gun was aimed at his heart, but the radio in his breast pocket slowed the bullet. It seems like it lodged in his shoulder more than his heart, I should say. And the two wade through the sea of the dead into Silo 17, where they find the door to the jail cells inside shut, the new barrier between the silo and the outside world. Invoking the name of Juliet, they talk teens Audrey, Georgiana Sadler, and Hope, Sarah Hazemi, into opening the door. Inside, Lucas gets medical attention, and Jimmy Conroy, aka Solo, Steve Zahn, fixes the radio, and we see the other side of the radio conversation with Martha and Juliet from episode 7. I mean, we were hoping that it would pick up here. Were you satisfied with how this went down?
I was. And I'm also quite pleased that they didn't have like an episode of Willie live, won't he live with Lucas. I mean, yes, he got shot, but he seems to be on the mend quite nicely by the end of this episode, because I just find that tedious, to be honest, because I think we can be pretty. I'm not saying Lucas won't die. I'm not saying he will survive to season 4, episode 10. But right now, he is too interesting a character to kill off.
Okay.
So I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't do the whole Willy won't he tease. Because that would have been quite boring.
Yeah.
I do like I said in the introduction, I do like the energy between Patrick Kennedy and Jimmy Solo. I think I hope they make it back to Silo 18. I think they could be quite a good odd couple going forward. I do like the "Do you know what you're doing?" the book does line. I thought that sort of in one line very neatly encapsulated the life that Jimmy has been forced to live. In that he knows all of this stuff, but he hasn't really learned it. Like, he hasn't internalized it. It's just all this information has been presented to him. Um, I'm glad the kids are all right, because that was starting to worry me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the kids, the younger kids didn't get much to do this episode. There's no sign of Benny at all, but I just assume that's child labor laws.
Yeah.
And it was grown up time to talk. And we saw that Rick Orlando Norman seems to have become Jimmy's assistant and seems to be learning from him. He was helping Lucas and fixing the radio. And we established last season that Benny babysits the baby a lot, so we can just assume when we don't see them, they're off screen and Benny naps a lot, I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
I liked the moment where Patrick got to see they've cut out pictures from the legacy of like animals and stuff and made a collage on the wall. And Patrick getting to see what these animals looked like was a nice moment.
Yes.
Just stepping back to when they're outside. So, what do we think about the drones? Like, why do you think the drones went away? I guess they don't have, for example, heartbeat scanning tech, because drones can probably only carry so much and they have guns on them.
Well, yeah, but they wouldn't even need that. All you need is a heat sensor.
Yeah, but they would, if they were just shot, then they wouldn't. They would still be warm for a bit, and then the drones did come back, if we find out.
Yeah, but you would just have the drone hover there for a little bit until the heat.
But it can't do that for hours, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, they can.
Well, I guess it depends, yeah.
Actual drones can, yeah.
For hours? I mean, I guess it depends on the drone, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, they can.
I mean, certainly I've had drones that like were just stupid little, private that couldn't last 10 minutes.
yeah. But the ones you would be using for that would have some legs.
And that is also something that, I mean, I'll say there's drones in the book. We know that they wanted to, in the Beforetimes League, they were interested in Charlotte as a drone pilot. So it's fair to say. But I think this is also another area where the technology has advanced since the books have been published.
Yeah.
Where drones are capable of more than they were when the books were written.
Yeah.
Well, I liked that Lucas had your shot. The Patrick said your shot, and Lucas is like, what? Like, you don't feel that? Which is absolutely the experience of shock, that you don't feel the pain for a minute. And I want to correct my saying there was gnats in the light to saying it looks more like dust blowing in the breeze. Did you notice that this time in their light? Like, is there a breeze?
Yeah.
Is it dust blowing? Do you have any thoughts about this?
Is it nanites blowing in the wind?
Dust in the wind. All he want is killing nanos in the wind. Yeah. And then what do you think about the fact that so Audrey obviously worried about letting the bad air in when the guys are trying to get in, but Lucas points out that he's been shot. So that means he has a hole in his suit because that's where the gun and the bullet entered, but he is still alive. So he says he must not have the poison on him. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that seems. Yeah, that seems very convenient plot wise. Oh, because I mean, how far were they from the entrance to Silo 17? I would say they were about maybe 10, 15 yards
Mm-hmm.
walking over broken terrain.
You mean bodies?
Yeah, and bodies, so that's going to take them a good couple of minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes. So yeah, like why isn't Lucas dead? That is a good question.
Mm. Yeah. It is a good question. And then, yeah, of course, we get the radio fixing and clean shaven Jimmy. I did wonder, did they have him shave his beard so that he looked more physically different than Patrick from
I bet
Patrick?
that's why they did it. Actually,
I forgot to point out, by the way, last time that Teddy's code name on their little radio code is Donnie, which is Donald, aka Daniel's nickname in the books. So I think that was another book shout out. Okay. And then to set up the rest of what happens in here, we have a mother's love. In the maintenance hallways behind Judicial, Jimmy, Audrey, and Patrick locate where the pipe they are looking for should be, and Patrick shares, as a maintenance/painting expert, that he believes it shows signs of someone having welded themselves inside this panel. That someone, of course, is Jimmy's mother. They need to move her remains before they can investigate the pipe situation, but Jimmy refuses to allow it, and Rick and Audrey refuse to allow anything that goes against Jimmy. Jimmy takes off, and someone, a grown up, needs to go talk to him, but Lucas is still down for the count and tells Patrick it needs to be him. He's the bullshit guy, anyway, the guy who convinced a lot of other people to follow him. So Hope, knowing where she'll find Jimmy, takes Patrick to his childhood home. There, Patrick talks to Jimmy about the burial rituals of Silo 18, a chance to say goodbye, and convinces Jimmy to allow them to give his mother a funeral as well. With the area now clear and Lucas better recovered, Lucas is able to crawl inside and analyze the situation. He can see that after Jimmy's mom welded herself inside, she sawed open the pipe, wearing a cleaning suit and presumably burning off the bad air as she worked. And she welded a cap onto the end that came of the pipe that came into the silo from outside so that no more bad air could make it through. The welding tanks were empty, leading Lucas to assume more poison came out than she expected, but she burned it off until she saw she was running out of fuel and welded herself in to make sure none of the poison got out. So, where do you want to begin with this?
I want to begin with Patrick Kennedy's sleuthing skills, which are extremely impressive.
That he could tell it was welded from
We
inside?
tell it was welded from the inside. So I thought that was cool, and it does actually marry up with his day job in Silo 18. So it does make sense how he got from point A to point B. Also, I feel really bad for Jimmy. Like,
well, can I just add can I just respond to that? That Lucas also showed impressive sleuthing skills with the presumption that she burned off the fire and welded herself in. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I felt really bad for Jimmy. You know, that must have come as a really nasty shock. Because obviously he wasn't expecting that.
Where do you think he thought his mother was?
I don't know where he thought she was, but I don't think he was expecting her to find her.
Yeah, inside
to find her there. As you put in the show notes, I think it's interesting that Audrey is still carrying a weapon in every scene we see her in.
Yeah. About Jimmy. It's nice that for him to learn, I suppose. This is a bit of a book difference. In the book, Jimmy's mom, both of his parents sacrificed himself to save him, sacrifice themselves to save him. She specifically, she sacrificed herself so that those people who were killed outside the vault, so that they couldn't get in, and then they killed her instead.
Yeah.
But here in the show, she sacrificed herself to save the entire silo. So that is nice, but still, this really struck me when Jimmy says, Patrick goes to talk to him, and Jimmy says, I never knew anyone who died until everyone did. So it's like he went straight from sheltered childhood to the ultimate trauma of genocide.
Yes.
You can see even Patrick that hits hard.
Yeah.
And then Patrick relates to Jimmy by comparing his loss of Doris, his wife, dear darling dead Doris.
Dear darling dead Doris.
You have to say the whole thing.
Yeah.
To honor her. With the loss of Jimmy's mother. And then this is where he tells him Doris was buried under a peach tree, feeds off that tree, which feeds people who might someday be able to walk outside again. And thus Doris is with them. And yeah, that's the kind of storytelling that we need to get through grief. And he points out that, it'll be good for the kids to give them a new way to cope with death as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, possibly. I think the kids just need to be reintroduced into a functioning society. They need to get to Silo 18.
It's going to be such a shock for them.
It is. It's going to be such a shock for them. And, but they've got Juliet, and they'll have Jimmy, and
Juliet's in jail now. Well, we'll get to that, but
yeah. Sorry, forgot that. Well, they'll have Martha, and they'll have Martha.
I saw people on Reddit saying they were really hoping for a conversation between someone called them the two maniacs, Jimmy and Patrick. So I hope this scene made them happy. And Patrick really showed a growth over this episode from when he first says, like, they discovered the body, and he says pretty rudely to Jimmy, we have to move her. She's blocking the pipe. Like, Patrick, give him a moment. What if it was your wife in there?
You like bluntness, Elysia, but there are limits.
Yeah, that's cruelty. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Patrick's also being judgy about Jimmy, calls him creepy, brings up the eye. We still need an explanation about why Jimmy's one eye is messed up, and that's not in the book, so I don't exactly know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then tells Jimmy that Doris would have laughed, that the thing he convinced people to follow him over, that it was actually nice outside, turned out to be total bullshit. And says Doris was the real leader, never fell for his bullshit, and thinks she would have set him straight here as well. I wonder what they're bringing up Doris a lot the last couple episodes. Obviously, she's not going to show up. She's buried under a peach tree. Why do you think Patrick's talking about Doris so much?
Well, we think she's buried under a peach tree.
I think she really is.
I'm just saying. We thought Knox's dad was dead. And,
I didn't. I never believed that for a second. You didn't either, I recall.
Fair enough. I'm just all right. The people in the silo thought Knox's dad was dead. Wouldn't it be funny if Knox's dad was hanging out with dear departed dead Doris?
I think Doris has better taste in company, but no, I think Doris is like super dead and under a peach tree. But I don't know, maybe it's just so we get to know Patrick better and how central his wife was to him. Maybe I wonder if he's going to make some sort of sacrifice in the name of his wife or something at some point. If they're setting up something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I want to see that peach tree now, though. I don't trust nothing anymore at this point.
We haven't been to the orchard all season. Lucas, as you pointed out, seems to be recovering quite nicely this episode. Like, he looked on death's door when he sent Patrick to go give Jimmy the talk. And then he looks much better when he's not that long later, climbing into that crawl space to look at the pipe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a bit of a magic bullet, to be honest. And this is what.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
Well, in the sense that, he's at death's door 1 minute and then he's sort of all right the next.
But what does magic bullet mean?
Well, no, I just think the bullet he was shot with clearly had like some magical properties because he was recovering.
Oh, okay.
Quite nicely.
Okay.
And I think this, to go back to what I said at the beginning, I think this is why this is a quite exposition heavy episode. There were some beats of it that didn't quite work. And I think this was one of them.
What, that Lucas is recovering?
Yeah, that Lucas seems to be recovering like unnaturally fast.
What if it wasn't a mistake in writing? What if there was a reason? I'm just like, what if things that seem to you right now as clunky writing, there's actually reasons behind them?
Well, I mean, you're the
That's
book
the thing a lot with this show that we're constantly telling people on Reddit, like, no, they didn't forget about elevators. There's a reason there's no elevators.
Yeah, well, I can't really comment on that because you're the book reader. But hold back, Elysia. Don't spoil anything. Pull back. Hold it. Hold it.
Okay.
Hold it.
I'm just saying, don't jump to poor writing.
Okay. Is this a nanos then?
How would that work?
Well, maybe if they can kill people, they can also heal them. But then why would they kill everybody else and not Lucas? All right. We've gone too far.
All right, we'll leave it.
I feel like we're on the precipice of serious spoiler territory.
We'll leave it. How do we think Jimmy's mom died? Like, she ran out of oxygen, or she just let herself starve to death in her?
No, I think she'd run out of oxygen. She'd run out of oxygen before she starved.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Well, any more thoughts on the Silo 17 part of the storyline?
Nope.
Okay. Let's take a break here and come back and wrap up with Silo 18. All right. Silo 18, The Voice's View. In the Silo 18 vault, The Voice checks in with head of IT Camille Sims, Alexandria Riley, about how she's handling finding out that her husband has been continuing to work against her. Camille says that she mostly feels tired. It's 4 a.m. after a long, emotionally draining day, but there's no time to sleep because The Voice has learned that Patrick and Lucas did not stay down. Their bodies have disappeared, meaning they have probably survived and made it into Silo 17. The Voice urges Camille to find out why they were really sent there. So Camille pays a visit to her husband, Rob, Common, where she left him in jail, bringing him a meal. And they bond over their concern for their son forgetting his memories until it becomes clear to Rob that his wife is manipulating him to get intel on what Juliet has been up to. Rob makes it clear that he is not on his wife's side, and she returns to The Voice to insist that she needs to know how they could possibly stop the safeguard if The Voice wants her to prevent it from happening. So, where do you want to begin here?
Okay. Where I want to begin here is, why hasn't The Voice initiated the safeguard?
Why should The Voice initiate the safeguard?
Well, I mean, it knows Patrick Kennedy and Lucas. By the way, why do we always call him Patrick Kennedy and never just Patrick?
I've been calling him Patrick.
Okay. Why do I call him Patrick Kennedy and never Patrick? Anyway, Patrick and Lucas, the Voice clearly knows something is up. The Voice also knows that the sitting judge and the former head of judicial is involved in it. It knows that Juliet is a long way off the reservation. It probably knows that something is going on with Mechanical. Like, at what point does it press the button on the safeguard? Because I keep coming back to this line that Camille said a couple of episodes ago. Until it grows arms and legs, I've got to be the one that okays things. Like, the algorithm doesn't have like an infinite amount of time to wait to initiate the safeguard. There will come a point at which the humans figure it out
Mm-hmm.
and are able to stop it. So what I don't understand, they're so far past the order and the pact at this point. You know, the two documents that are supposed to control and condition life in the silos. I don't understand what the algorithm is waiting for. Like, how far sideways have things got to go before it initiates safeguard? Because if I were looking at it from the algorithm's point of view, I think you're already comfortably across that line.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question that we'll dive into more later, but from the Juliet and Bernard conversation, we'll talk about in another part. But why do you think the safeguard exists at all? Why do you think the algorithm or the voice ever wants to kill the silo?
I mean I'm not 100% sure. I think the best thing I can come up with right now is it to prevent, I think that my explanation at the moment is it to prevent the humans from understanding the nature of their reality? In other words, why they ended up in the silo in the first place.
Hmm.
That's my sort of working hypothesis.
And if they found that out, what do you think the worry is?
I think the worry there is that they would turn on the algorithm, or they would turn on whoever or whatever is inhabiting Silo One.
Hmm. Okay. I like that Camille snarks back in this episode. She's like, how do I feel? Why are my cortisol levels high?" And then later there's a red visualization. The voice usually has a visualization on the screen, and it's red now instead of blue. And she says, "What I'm seeing, is this a reflection of my mood or yours?" Like, it's very Hal vibes.
And also, there's a really cool shot where you see the red representation of the algorithm reflected in Camille's eyes, which is really cool. So it
like
looks
she has like fire in her eyes.
Yeah, it looks kind of Terminator-esque.
And then she says, "Okay, then how about you kill us right now?" Which I'm like, I don't know. Don't tempt it.
Don't tempt the death machine.
But it is also like calling a bluff. So why do you think, okay, I asked you why you thought the algorithm might want to kill Silo 18. Why do you think the algorithm might not want to kill Silo 18?
Yeah, this is the thing I can't work out. Because if it's just its directive is to make sure that the humans are on the program, i.e., that they're following the rules laid out in the pact and the order, well, that's done. That's been and gone at this point. Yes, the forgetting drugs might work, but then again, they might not. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the algorithm's like risk and reward tolerance is at this point. Because if I were the algorithm, looking at it from the algorithm's point of view, at this point, I would be sorely tempted to push the button.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we do need to look. I mean, that is the thing, though, is we have never seen from the algorithm's point of view. We only see from the point of view of the Silotans. We don't see
true.
What the thinking is of the machine or whatever's going on in Silo 1. Not yet, at least. Not yet. Yeah. We've mentioned Silo 1 enough, and we obviously have to eventually see inside. I think it's interesting. The voice uses rather loaded language. Like, how do you feel now that your husband betrayed you? Like, damn, that's one way to put it.
It is loaded language, but it's not inaccurate.
Did he betray her, or is he like calling her? Like, sometimes calling someone out is being true to them, being like, the person I know would not do this horrible thing. What are you thinking?
But the thing is, Camille would do that horrible thing. Like, she has always been. Yeah,
I disagree. I've been a Camille defender, and I
yeah.
still wonder, like you keep saying about the doesn't algorithm not having the arms and the legs. I still wonder what kind of game she's playing, and if maybe even obviously she knows there's a camera in the holding cell where her husband is and where she was talking to him. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And now we find out there's. Do we think we hear the airborne surveillance went back and discovered that the bodies were gone? Do we think that surveillance is only when needed, or is it like nightly patrols or something like that?
I think it's probably nightly patrols, but again, I don't get that. Like you would just have the drone on station until the bodies went cold.
On state, just hovering there in
Yeah,
that spot. You
just
mean?
hovering on that spot until the bodies went cold.
I don't know. I'd be curious to hear from people who know more about drone technology, their thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, they're bonding about their son. I like the line, Anthony's 90% juice anyway. He would
Yeah.
be the last to forget.
I wondered about that actually because
Why?
because juice in the silo is presumably quite an expensive product.
Well, they are definitely one of the wealthiest families in the silo.
Yeah, because like you've only got a certain amount of fruit, and like using it for juice is not like the most efficient way of using the fruit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I mean, I would say this is a thing where Knox, when he talked about being in relative poverty, I would say he didn't get much
Yeah, he
juice
didn't get any
growing up.
juice. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure sometimes you get it in the cafeteria or whatever, but I doubt that they had like fridges full of juice like the
Yeah.
Simses do, which is again means that the people at the bottom, the poorest people, are the ones who are going to be forced to drink the forget water more and forget
Yes.
faster.
Yeah.
No. I thought it was really sad when Camille said, Anthony seems almost happy to go back to the way things were when I came home at night and you didn't.
Oh, way to twist the knife, Camille.
Yeah. Does he know mommy locked daddy up and that's why he's not coming home? But then she also said she said she was kind of hoping for him to forget. And I was like, what? Forget the fighting between the couple? Forget her being away for a while? Forget his father?
Yeah.
But then dreading it at the same time. And I'm getting the feeling from this talk, so here's the question. The talk gives me the feeling that she really did forget drugs in the water, but then I'm also like, or is she performing for the camera?
See, this is the thing. The two are indistinguishable. Because if you're going to convince the algorithm that you have put the forgetting drugs in the water, you can't for a moment let that performance stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is watching you the entire time. But we don't really know. It's kind of hard to tell how much time has passed. But we haven't seen any evidence of the forgetting drugs having any effect on anybody so far. And yeah, there's the whole thing about it being low and slow. But then you read out the mission stuff, and that doesn't sound particularly low. I mean, we kind of don't know about it being slow, but it doesn't sound like it's low at all.
Yeah, the TV version does make it feel like it's more dramatic. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. It's an adaptation choice. I don't know. I'm still a bit unclear about that. Because he did say low and slow. So maybe it's just the way we're interpreting the end of missions, where it's just missions diary was progressed to such such a degree.
Because we don't know how much time passed between in the 143 years ago missions timeline between the forgetting drugs being introduced and that entry being written.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, my heart did break at like the manipulation of that Camille, it's like, oh, they're bonding again, thank God. And then, oh no, she's just manipulating as soon as she starts asking him about Juliet, like, oh God. But yeah, and the way she paints it as like looking for hope about how they can stop Silo 1.
Yeah.
And why was she willing to send her closest friends, like trying to paint Juliet as, someone who would stab her friends in the back when instead of someone who trusts the people closest to her? And
Do,
yeah.
do we think the Sims' marriage is done at this point?
And well, I'll say Rob claps back here. You tried to erase what happened to her there, but you failed, just as I hope you fail here. And that was the moment where I most was like, damn, I don't know about these two.
Yeah.
He says the kids witnessed terrible things. And if you can't believe that she genuinely wants to help those children, then I don't know you anymore. And so I really, at this point, I was like, oh shit, it really is over between them. But then I did go back to like, first of all, where's Amy? I guess she's still beat up in another cell, but breathing at least. But I did go back to like, should the voice trust Camille? Is Camille in the end, she can't tell her husband the truth, but is she playing a role for the voice? Because then she goes back to the voice and she's like, well, I can't help you if you don't tell me what's going on.
Yeah. Like it was like, how does the safeguard work? It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was having the same thought. It's Camille playing both sides off against the middle here, which is exactly what she did last season. So it would hardly be out of character.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're seeing outlines of a story. I feel like that we've seen this. Okay, so shout out to the new Cosmere Corner podcast on the network. This fantasy series or series of collection of series by Brandon Sanderson, and he is known for writing in a way that's called the Sanderlanche. And the Sanderlanche is he he lays out all this exposition throughout the book. It's engaging still. I've finally started, as I said, a non-Wheel of Time book to follow along with the podcast. But I know that at the end of all of his books, because I ever read his Wheel of Time books too, he will bring all of this exposition together in what's called the Sanderlanche, and your mind's just blown. You're like, whoa, it all fits together and it all informs each other and all this stuff is happening. And that is how we've seen the first two seasons of Silo play out as well.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting, like, what's the Sanderlanche waiting behind like this sort of suggestions of what's going on that we're seeing?
Yeah, so in episode 10, we see what's really been going on all season.
Yeah, that's what I think. Any more thoughts about The Simses?
Nope.
All right, then let's move on to A Lift in Lightbulb Gate. Head of mechanical Deegan Knox, Shay McRae, knocks on a door, and his father Gus, William Hope, answers, surprised to see the son he's been hiding from for years. Knox wants to know what his father designed for head of mines Ed Harwood to buy this fresh start for himself. He wants to know if Harwood had anything to do with the supply thefts, but all he walks away with is the satisfaction of punching his asshole father in the face. Knox returns later with Sheriff Paul Billings, Chinaza Uche, and Deputy Hank Murphy, Billy Postlethwaite, as backup. They tell Gus that a girl has been murdered, and Gus swears, with seeming genuine surprise, that he doesn't know anything about that. And Billings emphasizes that the survival of the entire silo is at stake when it comes to the stolen light bulbs. In exchange for a promise Gus won't be persecuted for his machine design, he relents and shows his design to the others. Billings takes the design to head of supply Carla McLean, Claire Perkins, and the two of them, Hank and Knox, search construction supply for a secret room or shaft, finally finding a hidden elevator. They take the elevator to the mines, surprising Ed Harwood, Ned Dennehy, and he tells them the theft started during the rebellion. He wanted to make sure key supplies like the light bulbs remain safe from potential looters. Harwood insists absolutely, though, that neither he nor his daughter killed Orla Kent, and he hands over the name Mike Davidson, Chris Fulton, instead, and Hank and Billings arrest Mike. Billings later tells his wife, Kathleen, Caitlin Zaz, how the case turned out and that he told Orla's sister about the arrest. Paul and Kathleen share that they've been feeling lonely because though they had allies through their recent experiences, they didn't have each other. So So yeah, just to point out that they search construction supply rather than critical supply because of that moment from episode 1 of this season where Billings overheard Orla telling Juliet that construction supply is how she thought things were being moved around. But are you satisfied with this? Like, how much do we believe that Mike did the murder to begin with?
This is the whole thing. This plot seems to get wrapped up really, really quickly.
Do you think it is wrapped up? Is my question.
Well, I'm not sure because the whole way it seemed to conclude was just as a way of demonstrating. Look, they've got this elevator that they built. So I'm assuming that gets used in some way in the next 2 episodes. But and also Ed Harwood actually turning out to be a good guy.
Is he?
Well, I mean,
do we believe his explanation? And where are the light bulbs?
Yeah, where are the light bulbs? But also, surely this lift had to be built long before the rebellion, because that would have been hard to build.
Yeah, because we know that he said that Knox's dad died 2 years ago. So presumably, that's when he.
Yeah, so it's at least 2 years ago.
Well, presumably 2 years ago, exactly, because that's when he gave him the designs in exchange for a death alias.
Yeah, I guess, but Knox's dad also talks about there were like one evening when he and Ed Harwood were drinking and they came up with the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how much time elapsed between them having the idea and them actually acting on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he did say he came back later and was like, hey, that idea you had that one night. Yeah.
But the lift was there long before the rebellion.
Yeah, I would say at least 2 years. And that editing cut last episode that I was wondering about after Knox asked the name of the dead man his father replaced, I think, it's not that the name's important. Obviously, we don't learn it. It's just that that's how Knox found his father in the silo. So, okay, that makes sense. That concludes that mystery for me.
But I did have one moment that made me go, huh.
What?
Which is when Ed Harwood is sitting in his office, something like a buzzing thing goes off that looks a little bit like the key fob that the head of IT has.
Yeah, he had an alert set up.
Yeah, but I wonder whether.
But that was to tell him the elevator was coming.
Yeah, I know it was to tell him the elevator was coming, but I thought it was interesting that it kind of looked like that key fob.
So what do you think the connection would be, other than just it being technology to alert?
Well, I'm just thinking, what if they can make those? What if they make a replacement key fob for the head of IT?
And then used it how?
I'm not sure about that, but what if? I'm not sure. I hadn't thought that far ahead. But I just thought it was interesting that they can make something that looks very similar to that key fob.
Jumping back though to Knox's dad, what did you think of him? Do you think he's as bad as he was painted out to be? Like, how did you find me? Your friends aren't as friendly as you think, which apparently this guy's a dick to everyone his whole life. So why would anyone be loyal to him?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we didn't see a lot of Knox Senior, to be honest. He did come across as a bit of a dick, but I'm prepared to take Deegan Knox's word that he is in fact a dick.
What did you think about the all my life I wanted to ask you one question. How does it taste?
Boof.
What the fuck are you talking about? Punch.
Yeah, like you put in the show notes. Is there a boxing ring somewhere in the silo? Because Knox has got a pretty decent right hook on him.
Yeah, we've seen it a few times now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something like boxing is a sport you could absolutely do in the silo.
It is.
You cannot do soccer or football or whatever, or field sports are out. Ice hockey, totally.
Yeah, out. but like boxing, wrestling.
Yeah, we've seen that they do the stair races.
Yeah. Also, this is probably just me, but I was starting to hum Boy Named Sue in that whole scene.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, no, the whole Johnny Cash thing of, the whole story of a boy named Sue is, guy finds his dad who called him Sue and he punches and they get in a fight. That's like the whole story of
Okay.
the song.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder about like this whole elevator idea. I would think the pact forbidding the use of lift technology would have given more engineers this thought through the years. Maybe they're the first ones who went
Yeah,
through with
I
it.
don't think it's that they had the thought. I think it's that they had the gumption to actually do it.
But then the question is, if they're moving things by elevator, but the elevator connects to inside the mines, why was Glenda walking into the mines through the front door in that video? It's like, sure, that explains how she got all those level in 10 minutes, but then she was walking in through the front door.
Yeah. I don't think this storyline entirely ties together, to be honest.
Well, what did I say about let's wait
All
and
right.
see how it
Look, I can only comment on what's on screen.
Yeah, but let's not jump to, because this is one I honestly, other cases I do know that there's things that we don't know yet that haven't been told on screen. In this case, I don't know what we haven't been told yet because this is a new storyline, but I've learned to trust the process and wait until at least the season is done before I decide.
Okay.
By the way, when Harwood gets that buzz and he goes into the tunnels to the elevator, if you take a closer look at the couple he passes when he goes down the stairs and then walks into a tunnel, he passes a couple. I'm pretty sure this is the cameo by book writer Hugh Howey and his wife, Shay Landre.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you sent me the photo of Hugh Howey and his wife in the WhatsApp, and yeah, they look kind of minery. They overalls and sooty faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said because he did a cameo also in he was in someone in Mechanical in season 1 watching Juliet go out to clean, and he said, I guess my character got into some trouble after that because he's in the mines now. Yeah. I just think it was funny when he's like, oh fuck, I told you not to come up here, the sheriff is like, the sheriff's what, Mr. Harwood?
Yeah,
says the sheriff.
Also, Billings with a dry cool wit like that, I could be an action hero.
Yeah. But I will say, like, as far as the theft stuff, I think that's far from over because I don't think I buy Ed Harwood's story. Like, even Billings was like, that sounds nice, but okay, let's move on to the murder. But again, as I said, where's the stuff?
Yeah, let's see the light bulbs.
Yeah. But I think I do believe on the murder side that, they said, okay, the murder motive is that they're afraid she was going to turn them in for stealing or building a relic that could get them sent out to clean. But we saw in the first episode, we saw that she said Mike is the one that she told, I think I figured something out, and then she disappeared. So I think Ed, Glenda, and Mike are all guilty of theft, but I think Mike might be the only one guilty of murder. And I just hope that Dandy the doggy is okay and has been rehomed and renamed because Dandy's a stupid name. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Carla can take him on. Carla and Martha can have a doggy now.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, they'd be awesome. They'd be awesome step parents for the dog.
Yeah. And then, Billings emphasizes he told Orla's sister nothing about the lift thing or the light bulb. So there are still some secrets in the silo.
Yes.
But I'm glad to see the Sims might be on the outs, but the Billingses seem like they're back on the right track.
Well, we mentioned in the last episode that Chinaza Uche and Caitlin Zaza are actually married, which led me on to is the baby that they've got in silo actually their baby?
Oh. I don't know about that. We can look that up.
Yeah.
I can't find anything about it. I would guess not.
Okay.
That would just be my general guess from, I don't know. I mean, it's not impossible. Maybe. If anyone knows, let us know.
Just a thought, anyway.
They don't put the babies in the credits. I'll say that.
Okay. Just a thought.
Any more thoughts about this whole plot line for this episode?
Nope.
All right, let's take one final break and then finish our Silo 18 story. So, a link in the larger network. Former head of IT Bernard Holland, Tim Robbins, draws a schematic of the silo layout for Mayor Juliet Nichols, Rebecca Ferguson, and they discuss how they believe the safeguard pipe network must work. Bernard argues that if they can cap the pipe in their silo, this will give them leverage to get the voice to listen to them so that they can have a conversation to find out why Silo 1 believes the safeguard network and memory reset is necessary in the first place. Now that Lucas has passed on what they learned about the pipe in Silo 17, the Silovengers are ready to enact the same plan in 18. Engineer Shirley Campbell, Remy Milner, plans to be the one to do the deed. Her plan is to pinch the pipe, sealing it before they even saw into it, and then capping it off after as a safeguard of their own. They'll need to use a hammer drill, though, which will create a sound that is anything but subtle. So, Shirley plans to not hide what they're doing, but rather get someone to pose as a GWP supervisor to inspect the pipe and order the work to stop the level from flooding, allegedly. As for who will play this supervisor role, Sandy Chipo Chung is one of the least known faces in the silo. And I'll say on the Discord, Marcus S said, I think GWP stands for groundwater pipes, which makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too, Marcus, but I just wish on screen they would actually say what the acronym stood for.
I'm satisfied with this. So we learn that there's 7 clusters of silos in a circle around Silo 1, and each of those clusters has 7 silos in it, which is another 6 centered around 1. So that's, 7 clusters of 7, 49 silos, 1 in the middle, that's 50. I promise not to talk about trailers here, but I'll just say I think it's fair to say that we can expect a more exact map of this at some point, which we can analyze in more detail then. But basically what is set up here is Julia and Bernard think that the pipes with the bad air are sent through the nearest silo in each cluster, which in the Silo 18 cluster, Silo 18 is the nearest silo to the center we saw on this little map. And then from there, the pipes split and go to the other silo. So it means if they can cap the pipe that goes into Silo 18, they are not only preventing them from using the safeguard in 18, but they are preventing them from using the safeguard in the other 5 surviving silos, assuming they're all except for 17 surviving. So that's why they say, basically we force them to listen and force them to explain pretty much. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, that makes sense.
Were you gratified to hear Bernard? He's angry, extra angry with Silo 1 because I think he's also angry with himself and projecting that direction too, because he says he did these terrible things thinking they were justified. And then Lucas went and told him about the safeguard and he realized everything he believed is bullshit and that he killed Meadows for nothing, basically.
Yeah.
Were you gratified to hear him address that?
Yeah, because what Bernard thinks he's done is he thinks everything he's done is to stop a rebellion and to stop people opening the silo lid and getting out and killing everybody. But the fact is that everybody in that silo could be killed at any moment in a completely arbitrary and capricious way, at least from their point of view. So, what was the point of it all?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it's worth going back over what was Bernard's original motivation for doing all this stuff. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the utilitarian calculation of trying to keep the maximum number of people alive in the silo for as long as possible. And now, like he said in episode 10 of season 2, none of that matters because they could just all be killed at any minute. and they don't know why. And I think actually the more interesting thing that Bernard says is he's prepared to concede the possibility that Silo 1 might actually have a good reason for wanting to kill everybody. He just wants to cap the pipe in order to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to really believe it, but he's like, let's talk to them first, which I think is reasonable. Yeah.
Let's at least concede the possibility that there might be a reasonable reason why they want to commit mass murder.
Yeah. Let's hear them out.
Let's hear them out.
But first, we have to force them to speak.
But that sounds stupid. But that is absolutely Bernard's worldview. The ends might justify the means if I understood what the ends were. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, finally, after how many years of being head of IT, he's developed a little freaking curiosity.
Yeah. And like the whole thing about Mary Meadows is like, I loved her in my way. No, Bernard, you just loved her. Like that's the same way as everybody else.
Yeah.
You are not some unique snowflake, Bernard. Like,
he didn't think he had the right to love her, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can ever get our Jean to say this. I hate this. What? Not hating you. Anyone who doesn't know, Argent is a noted family Sims and Bernard hater.
Exactly. Like if I think more so family Sims than Bernard actually. But yeah, if we can turn Jean around on the family Sims, then I believe in the infinite perfectibility of human nature at that point.
Yeah, that's a test for the writers. Can they make Jean forgive Bernard and the family Sims? Okay, and then this brings us to the last section for this episode, pregnant and penned up. After Shirley heads off for Operation Kappa Pipe, Juliet realizes, based on the direction their outside cameras point, that their silo must actually be oriented in a different direction than their next door neighbors. So she rushes off to warn Shirley not to break into the wrong panel. And as she does so, as she talks to Shirley, she realizes Shirley's pregnant. As the two women walk and talk up the stairs, Sandy radios them, speaking in code, but slipping in the name Ralph Melby. Juliet realizes this was the name of one of the men Bernard and Robert tried to implicate, along with Patrick Kennedy, to cover up their role in the murder of Deputy Marnes in season 1, when Juliet and Sandy were working together. This was a code to alert Juliet that something was amiss, as new judicial goon number 1, Emerson, Florian Clare, is listening in. Sandy is arrested on the spot and sent to judicial seclusion. And Juliet knows they're coming for her next and tells Shirley to get away from her so that she can continue on with the plan. And Juliet is arrested and thrown in judicial seclusion with Robert. The rest of the Silovengers are in a panic, and Knox suggests going back to the old plan and blowing up Judicial. So are we glad, first of all, that Juliet and Shirley finally get to talk about Shirley's pregnancy?
Yeah, and I thought the whole thing with Shirley explaining how they remove the birth control, just, how cute is Knox?
Yeah, she says, first of all, I love that Juliet just noticed by the way Shirley was like adjusting her belt bag, and she's like
Juliet says, she's been around a lot of pregnant people, so
at least in her childhood before she went to mechanical. It seems confirmed Shirley and Knox unsanctioned relationship, unsanctioned pregnancy. I guess they thought the silo might just be more lax with numbers after the rebellion. Like, they thought they could get away with it?
Yeah, so they appear to have stolen some anesthetic from a dentist, I think she says.
Mm-hmm.
And Knox was doing a bit of DIY surgery.
Yeah, she says, you would have loved it. He cried and cried. Oh, Cheryl, I'm so sorry.
Knox is awesome.
She's like, I can't feel a thing. I'm fine. Yeah, no, that was a sweet moment between the two of them. Good to see Juliet and Shirley fully made up. And Now, okay, at first I was like, why would you put Juliet and Robert in the same room? But I figure it's probably the same trick as putting Carla and Martha in the same cell last season when Bernard was trying to get them to talk to each other and spill the plan. I assume that's the idea
Or,
now.
or that judicial seclusion could just be getting a bit crowded at this point.
Yeah, probably crowded too, but yeah, putting those two together in particular, I assume it's because there's a camera on them and it's like, yeah, no, please do talk about your plans.
Yeah.
And then Camille says to Robert, you made your choice, but something about this still makes me up. Camille, I believe in you. I believe you're faking all this.
I mean, I
The
would
question
not.
is, does Robert know if she is?
I would not be staggered if we got to episode 10 and that was the denouement. Like, I think it's a 50-50 call. I think it's a coin flip. At the moment.
Yeah. I have more judgment for Knox's let's go back to the old plan. And I understand that now they're like, okay, now we can't do the whole drilling into the wall thing because, we can't pretend that it's maintenance work because they're onto us. So let's just blow it. But still.
It still doesn't work. You're still going to gas like hundreds of people at least.
Yeah, I assume I'm thinking that it might come down to the same sort of thing that Jimmy's mom did, that it might be one person who ends up sacrificing themselves to seal themselves in and do the job in the same way that she did.
Okay.
Who do you think it would be? Not Shirley. There's no way pregnant Shirley's
No.
Knox?
Knox, yeah, I'm thinking Knox. Maybe Patrick Kennedy if he makes it back in time.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's in the other silo, so how long do they want to wait?
Yeah, so that's a big if. I'm trying to think who else would go. Down Deep Deputy Hank, possibly.
Oh, but he's not. Yeah, he's not like. Wouldn't it be better to have someone with welding experience?
Yeah, I mean the one thing you would say about Knox is not only is he an expectant father, but he is still the head of mechanical. Mm-hmm. Like nobody knows the well, actually, we can say nobody knows the generator better than he does, but actually probably Juliet does.
Yeah, there's still Juliet. Although, the Shadow Cooper is gone. So
so
we don't know if they have a new Shadow.
Yeah, and whoever that Shadow is going to be pretty raw, pretty.
Or maybe Teddy is the new Shadow. To be honest.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, no, they better not. They better not sacrifice. Oh God, they are, aren't they? They're going to sacrifice Knox. I can see it now.
Maybe. Yeah. But I just, they can't. Blowing it up is so stupid.
Yeah, no,
not only are Juliet, Rob, Sandy, which I don't think they even necessarily realize yet, Amy, they don't know her, but she's in there too, and all the people above and below. But also, I just they just didn't really have a proper containment plan for this either. So I just think the blowing it up idea remains to me really dumb.
Yeah, no, it is.
Really dumb.
It's just really, really dumb.
But Martha Walker, Harriet Walter, says Jules would want them to do something and she doesn't intend to live long enough to forget her. I just think this is a way of ending the episode on a high note of tension. But I do think that it's going to turn into an individual sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't, now we've actually talked about it, I can't see it being anybody other than Knox.
Oh, I mean, maybe Teddy, but to be honest, from a storytelling perspective, it would be more meaningful if it was Knox, right?
Yeah, I don't think Teddy sacrificing himself is going to have a whole lot of impact, story-wise, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, I received and pulled some feedback, so let's get into that.
Now opening the listener feedback channel.
So Soph YB says, we still haven't gotten an answer on what I think Orla's sister was talking about when she said it seemed like Orla had been carrying a burden, which was suddenly lifted. Are we just supposed to infer that the burden was Carla asking her who was stealing from Critical Supply and the knowledge that they only had 2 years supply left, but then she worked out where it was going? What do you think? Is that what I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. The TCS says, listening to the pod was interested in the discussion about the US Congress and British Parliament. I'm certainly not an expert, but based on what I know, Daniel would be protected on the House floor, generally speaking, as long as what he says is quote unquote in the sphere of legitimate legislative activity. What's unusual here is that they have signed NDAs. This is different than being given access to classified information, or at least it should be. Daniel, as a congressman, may, I'm not up on all the rules, be able to view certain classified information. Helen should not unless she got clearance. And herein lies the question. Is this a private or a government activity? They said the lawyers were government lawyers and threatened sending them to Guantanamo, but NDAs are different than classified information, and clearly there are non-governmental funds at play. I guess it's possible it's a mix, which then really calls into question what Daniel could reveal on the floor of the House if he were so inclined. If government funds are used and it can be tied to legislative activity, which if it's related to that committee Charlotte wanted him on, it might be, he should have some protection. So we did get some more clarity here where Pear claims to be funding this all on his own, but Senator Thurman's involved, and definitely, as the TCS points out, government lawyers are involved. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, and I presume it would be for the House parliamentarian to decide whether what Daniel was saying would be legitimate legislative activity. So it is the same then as the UK House of Commons, but just because I'm a nerd for this kind of thing, for the UK House of Commons, there is technically the same carve out that it has to be legitimate legislative activity, but speakers and the clerk's office, which is the British name for the House parliamentarian, have always taken a very broad interpretation of what counts as legitimate legislative activity. And I think if any public funds, if any taxpayer funds were involved, so that could even be something as tangential as, say, the contractors running the diggers being in receipt of federal funds for other projects, then you might be able to rule that as being legislatively germane. But anyway, I think we're getting off into a level of detail that isn't really required to enjoy the show, to be honest.
The TCS continues. I can comfortably say that Helen would most likely be held accountable if she wrote something in violation of an NDA.
Oh, yeah, I've never questioned that. It's Daniel.
Yeah, no.
Really,
yeah, that was more. I asked the TCS to elaborate on that. You were right that the law surrounding what Congress people can say is murkier. I think the key would be if it's related to congressional business. If a congressperson has signed an NDA about something that was not part of any legitimate business of Congress, then I'm pretty sure the speech and debate clause would not apply. For Daniel, it would matter if any of this is involved in Congress at all. This is where that, and I think it was the Iran committee, would come into play. And then I'd wonder if he would need to be involved in it. All bets are off for classified information, though, which I know was not your question. Yeah. Also, I have absolutely no expertise in this area. I'm just a bit of a government nerd who used to teach government. Rarely were our issues this complex in class. And I said this should be absolutely classroom teaching in this show silo. And there was a nice conversation on the Discord about people, what they would show for their various subjects they taught in class. Any more thoughts you want to add on this?
No, I think we've gone off into a level of detail that really isn't required to enjoy the show.
Okay, but we do have a couple more pieces of feedback. Gabby says, "Dear Elysia and Luke, watching this episode and listening to your discussion, the conversation between," and this is the last episode, by the way, episode 7, of course, the conversation between Helen and Dr. Cernkovich got me thinking of season 3, episode 2, and Helen's initial comments about his experiments on, quote, prisoner populations in countries too indebted to U.S. aid to say no, and DoD first-year recruits who don't get a say in their medical treatment. I'm making the assumption that Victor experimented on others to perfect the drug he eventually used on himself. If that is true, I see him as a mad scientist, perhaps driven mad by grief. To me, this seems somewhat despicably driven by selfishness. What of all the people who got the drug before it was ready for prime time? Helen says, he took a big blackboard eraser and wiped out their memories.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting and correct to classify Victor as a mad scientist, but it hadn't, even though I am quite into like the Gothic Victorian literature and the, 30s monster movies and stuff where mad scientists reign, I hadn't thought of him as such just because his temperament is not mad. His temperament is kindly and controlled. But yeah, I do think this is one of the reasons why I'm so interested in him as a character, these complexities.
Yeah.
Hmm. Gabby says, I think the door in the TV show are passageways to the other silos, and that's how they're going to get the kids back. And the stolen light bulbs are to light the tunnels that Harwood is digging to find a way out. What do you think of that?
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely here for the tunnels trying to find a way out.
Also, regarding Anna and Charlotte, I think they had been in a relationship that started before Charlotte's mission. I think Anna asking Daniel's permission to visit Charlotte was because the relationship was secret and Anna needed a plausible reason to visit her. I buy into this, actually.
Yeah, I buy that. I absolutely buy that.
But then it means that Charlotte didn't remember her at first. But I've seen also people questioning, could Anna have imprinted memories of her and Charlotte in that time?
Oh, well, yeah, that'd be really evil. That would be really, really evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. I think, yeah, there are definitely still, I need to know what is the meet cute between Anna and Charlotte.
Yeah.
Did they know each other? Like, because then I responded to Gabby and said, could it have also been that Anna was Charlotte's source that let her know that the project was off? Although I don't know, because then would Anna have let Charlotte go through with it? With being the bait? In the plane?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Good question. But yeah. No, if Anna could have like imprinted on her, that'd be really, because yeah, that's the other problem with this thing that Victor, because that's what I was saying like last episode. Like even if Victor was successful in restoring your memories, you would always question: were they actually accurate? Were they actually your memories?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You bring up good points, Gabby. She says, I read all 3 books after binging the first 2 seasons and then again as a refresh before starting season 3. Love your podcast. Thank you, Gabby. Well, thank you, Gabby. These are great points of discussion. And Barb says, just listening to the pod and I'm absolutely here for a 3-hour dissection of minute details, so thank you. I might be wrong, but I don't think Bernard is using a cane. His arm and hand appear to be paralyzed and contracted on the burnt side when he was standing outside waiting for Juliet. So, okay. Fair. So regardless, Bernard seems to be healing up.
Yes.
So. Okay, so I'll say, I'm going to shout out some blue sky feedback that we got. So I asked, who's stealing the light bulbs and what are they doing with them? Wrong answers only. Legendary Bomba said, a group of farmers, engineers, miners, and porters are making grow houses for pot plants to enhance vitamin D plus efficiency. Question was, who is Knox's daddy? Wrong answer offered. Legendary Bomba said, not Harwood, but he's connected. Indeed. What artifact in your life would make a good silo relic / memory trigger? And Legendary Bomba says Pokemon Funko Pop, any and easy. And Siobhan Logan says will fall asleep mulling on what relic worthy objects my life could hoard. My dad's watch, one of my hubby's random origami pieces, my Northern Lights snow globe. Thinking emoji.
Oh, I'm liking the origami. It's that's very much like the little luck charm that Bernard had.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Wrigley's wrapper.
Yeah. So we'd still love to hear more of people's relics that they would. What would be your personal artifact to bring you back from the memory drug? You can send those thoughts to we'llshiftdustpodcast@gmail.com. Link in the show notes. And yeah, we will sneak in some more feedback, particularly if you send it by email in the last 2 episodes. But then we will do a dedicated mailbag to wrap up the season after the season finale. So send in your thoughts. Book spoilers are okay, but then those elements will be discussed in the book club episodes. Of course, our full weekly coverage continues for the last few episodes. Join the Discord. You'll also find a link for an invite for that in the show notes, where there's separate spoiler chats per episode, plus a separate chat for book discussions. I'll say the book discussions chat is full spoilers, so tread there at your own risk. It is a free-for-all. And then if you are interested in going deeper with the podcast, then there is also the book club. You'll find those links in the show notes. There is a Supercast and Patreon option. Both are basically the same thing. Check each and which works best for you. But basically there you'll get ad-free access to all of these episodes, plus the additional bonus episodes that are released each week that Abby and I talk about. The book spoiler things we can't talk about in this episode, with special lore topic deep dives each episode. This time, the lore topic deep dive is going to be everything we know about the nanos from the books and what we think will stay the same or change in the show version. If you have a monthly subscription, then you have access to all of that, plus all of the extra episodes like holiday specials, Beacon 23 coverage, Dune stuff, etc. Thank you to our new Silazans, Tiffany C., Rebecca Y., Anik M., and Joe S. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much I appreciate your support. But there's also, if you just want a one-time fee option instead of a monthly subscription, you can just get access to one or more seasons of your choice through the season passes. There's also available in both Supercast and Patreon. Same sorts of options in each. 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, whatever works best for you. The more seasons you get, obviously, the higher the discount. So yeah, all that stuff linked in the show notes, including our Blue Sky and Threads profiles, where you can find Luke and I. Luke, also, you are on the podcast It Could Be Said.
Yeah, so that's a podcast I do with 2 friends from university, Will Cooley and Simon Alvey. We record roughly once a month. We talk about all things British politics, world politics, sport, culture, and whatever else takes our fancy.
And you can also find me on the Lorehounds podcast, the Parent podcast. There's earlier this week in that feed, you'll find House of the Dragon season wrap up with David and Jean. They're also beginning weekly Lanterns coverage there. Have you watched the first episode of Lanterns yet?
No, I haven't.
I do think you'll like that show. I recommend it to you.
Okay, I will add it to the ever-growing list.
Okay. Also, earlier this week, we put out a Spider-Man Brand New Day episode, and there's additional episodes coming up with a Ted Lasso season check-in with David and John. And Jean and I will be covering X-Men 97 Season 2 next week as well. So you can find all of that in the lorehounds.com link in the show notes, where you'll also find our affiliates like Dungeons and Durags. Also just wrapped up House of the Dragon and beginning Lanterns coverage. Never Mind the Music, where music meets psychology. Properly Howard just dropped a surprise Obsession episode, and Cosmere Corner, which I talked about earlier in this episode. Final thoughts from you, Luke?
Really looking forward to the last 2 episodes. I just hope Daniel and Helen are allowed to turn into Grey Goo together.
Yeah, and save Dandy.
Yeah, and save Dandy the dog, yeah.